Cannabis Business Minds, we train and mentor professionals, entrepreneurs, and aspiring entrepreneurs on how to confidently find their place in the legal cannabis and hemp industries. Come on and join us at cannabisbusinessminds.com. So as you start thinking about being a business owner of a cannabis license, the most important thing that you can do is when we think about your business, when we think about the admin behind your business, is make sure that you are setting up your foundations, your profit foundations right the first time, right? I've seen a lot of businesses that went through application, went through licensing, went through launch, having a horrendous accounting setup, profit setup. And what happened? They spent tens of thousands of dollars on accounting to fix it. They had to refile tax returns. They had just a lot of issues. And this is cannabis. This is not cannabis. This is actually any poor planning at the very beginning of your business from a legal and financial perspective can really cost you tens of thousands of dollars down the road. And that's what we don't want to happen. And so when we think about setting up your profit systems, well, let's think about what does that actually mean? So setting up your profit systems means a few things. It means that you need to have a legal entity. And so if you're curious about what legal entities are and all that, that's in another video, but you need to have an appropriate legal entity that protects you, that protects the business, that protects other shareholders in the business. That also is advantageous for good taxes. You need to have that. And you need to have systems that are set up, accounting, sales systems, invoicing systems, marketing systems, although, that is in the realm of profit. But when we think about true profit, that's like a little side indirect. Payment systems, if you're cash or if you're banking, right? You need to have those systems set up and build the architecture around that so those systems can work for you. So when you sell, it's automatically there in the accounting system. So when you want to pull reports to analyze stuff and be that true cannabis CEO, those are the things that you will be actually looking at and actually doing. So when you think about setting up your business, there's a few things. So you want to make sure that you've got your legal ducks in a row. You want to make sure that you have really looked out and run the numbers behind what you believe your business model is, right? So thinking about your revenue streams of how you're actually making money, thinking about your cost of goods sold of like what it is to actually sell cannabis and sell the product to your desired customers. And then what it takes to actually operate the business in terms of your sales, your marketing, and your operating costs, your facility costs, your cost of compliance. That is so important because it gives you, that's called an operating budget, a startup budget, because it gives you an idea of what your requirements are for cash. It gives you an idea of what your taxes will be. It gives you an idea of what sales figures and sales numbers you have to hit to actually be very profitable and in your business. And it gives you a roadmap of where you and your team are going to go. So that's one of the things, is just like running your numbers. But so that's from one standpoint, but then we have to remember cannabis businesses have a lot of taxes. We have local tax, we have state tax, we have federal tax, right? Cannabis taxes, right? In addition to income tax, in addition to self-employment tax. So there's a lot of taxes that you and your business partners could be exposed to. And you want to make sure that you got a smart tax plan to assess all of that stuff. So that's another thing, is like you want to assess your local taxes, your state taxes, your federal taxes, the impact it is to your business and the impact it is to you. Like that is number one, what you want to do before you even really commit to saying, oh yeah, I really want to do this business. Because when you look at the numbers, sometimes you look at them and you're like, oh, wow, actually, it's going to take me a lot to do this. I'm going to need to hire somebody to make sure I can hit those sales, right? So the number exercise, the business operating budget exercise is so fundamental to you really setting up those profit systems. So After you've done that, that is when, and you're kind of like good to go. You register your stuff with the IRS, you register your stuff with the Secretary of State. What do I mean by stuff? I mean your tax ID with the IRS. I mean your articles of incorporation, organization, depending on your legal entity with the Secretary of State. You get your business permits, right? So if you're a cannabis license, we know that those permits would take a little bit longer. And then we would start setting up our profit systems. So your profit systems would be your banking, your invoicing, your accounting, all of that. And it's interesting. One thing I definitely want to say is that depending on where you are in the timeline of if you're setting up these business systems and you have other ways to make money, not selling cannabis, right? So like, let's say you are thinking about there's money behind the license. What else can you do? Then you would essentially, not have to set up all of like, let's say you have a business and you've registered it and you know that it's going to be like 3 years before you actually get the cannabis license. Okay, well, you need to be legally protected. Maybe you're going to do some educational stuff. Maybe you have some products that you want to, non-cannabis products that are related to your brand that you want to sell. Okay, that's great. Well, you obviously would set up your profit systems. You wouldn't go buy that inventory management system. You wouldn't go integrate that until you have been approved for the license, et cetera. So that's what I wanted just to explain in a little bit more detail, is that that's something that would take some time for you to actually to implement. So setting up those profit systems, the reason why you actually do this is because it will give you so much power as a business owner when you want to scale, when you want to analyze your business, if you're looking for investment, if at one point you want to sell your company, right? So there's so many benefits of setting up your profit systems at the very get-go. And to do this, you definitely need to have a profit team. And so who's the profit team, right? So if you're operating on your own and you are wanting to get in the space, you got to assess again the timeline of who you want to get involved in, right? So that's where there's like the devil's in the details. But on your profit team, on your cannabis team, you have to have a lawyer that really understands cannabis regulation. You also have to have a lawyer that really understands business and IRC 280E, the federal tax code. You want to have someone who is very good with numbers. And so let's just dispel a few things, right? So a CPA, I'm a CPA, should be very good with numbers, but CPAs have different specialties, right? So you're going to want somebody that really understands taxes, that understands just the legal requirements and the tax requirements in your city and in your state, and also at the federal level. Now, we've just discussed it lightly, but there is the federal tax code, IRC 280E. IRC 280E is a tax that is imposed upon any cannabis operator that is trafficking, meaning selling a controlled substance, a Schedule 1 or 2. Cannabis at the moment is a Schedule 1 substance. So that means that a cannabis business has to fall under the guidance of IRC 280E. IRC 280E is punitive, meaning it is 3 times worse than a normal, tax. It is crippling to a business. There are strategies around, minimizing your tax burden with IRC 280E. So when you think about setting up, you want to work with somebody, or you want to at least educate yourself by taking the THC Cannabis Bootcamp that we have on what are the requirements that you have to go by, right? And so your profit team is going to consist of somebody that is very good with numbers from a tax perspective, but you also want somebody that is very good with numbers, that is like your CFO, that can help you navigate setting up those profit systems, but analyzing those profit systems, analyzing the numbers behind it to help you make great financial decisions. You will at one point need a bookkeeper. There are so many amazing options for bookkeepers, right? That person also would be on your profit team. So that's 2, right? We've got your legal, we got your profit team. So who else is on just like your cannabis, like profit team, right? You also want somebody on your founding team to be in sales, to be very hyper growth focused, be in marketing, customer acquisition, all that kind of stuff. Why? Because there's a lot of other systems that I still call profit systems that aren't accounting in nature that you can set up on the back end to be able to acquire customers, maintain relationships with customers, and all that good stuff. That is really important at the very beginning of your phase of, pre-license phase, but also as you're licensed, like you want to continue to engage your fans. If you're B2B, you still have a sales strategy and a marketing strategy related to the businesses that you work with. If you're B2C, clearly you want to have that touch point with your customers. Where a lot of cannabis businesses don't have is from a B2C perspective. If I'm a branded manufacturer, hopefully I'll get raving fans on my Instagram, but that's not always the approach to actually getting customers, right? So that is just a few things. So let's just recap. So you want your legal team, you want your profit team, you want your growth, sales and marketing team. You definitely want your cannabis team. So what's that mean? So because cannabis is regulated, you might not have all the expertise. You want to definitely talk to somebody who has industry expertise that's been working in the industry for quite some time. Why do you want to talk with them? Not how it used to be. It doesn't matter how it used to be, but what information you want from a cannabis industry veteran is that you want information related to the plant, formulation, the nuances of the supply chain, right? So there are definitely 3 main pillars, which I just said, that you need to understand very fully, that if you're a newbie coming in from, a different market, you're not going to have that information and it's going to be hard to find. But if you have somebody with cannabis expertise, you'd easily find them. Other people that will be on the cannabis team would be somebody that is related to security. You're going to need them for the application. You will, because it's, highly regulated, you're going to need a security plan. And then from the cannabis expertise perspective, like let's say you open or applying for a grow or applying for an extraction business. Well, you've got to have that lead cultivator on your team. You've got to have that lead extractor on your team, right? So there's definitely people that you want to have as part of your team. Now, what's interesting when we think about timeline, the timeline is not as, like let's say you're just trying to make money before the license, you might not need that extractor yet. So it's really important just to think about the timeline of how things are going. Thanks so much for listening to this week's show. Please subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. And if you enjoyed this, leave us a 5-star review. Make sure that you share this episode on your social media and tag us in the Instagram stories. You can find us wherever you go on social media. Just look up Cannabis Business Minds. Have an idea for the show or something that you want to talk about? Shoot us an email at podcast@cannabisbusinessminds.com.